Hi everyone, my name is Abhiraj Garakapati. Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Abhi. Episode 2 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Season 4 is titled The Dungeon Evolves, also referred to as The Evolving Labyrinth. The title tells us exactly what this episode is about. After episode 1 set up the problem that Tempest's dungeon was impressive but not comfortable or attractive enough for normal adventurers, episode 2 focuses on turning that problem into an opportunity. Rimuru does not treat the dungeon as just a monster-filled battlefield. He treats it like a national attraction, a business project, a training ground, and a political symbol. This is why the episode feels very slime-like. It mixes comedy, fantasy management, game-like logic, and nation-building into one story. On the surface, it is about improving a dungeon. Under the surface, it is about Tempest becoming a country that can pull the entire world toward it. The episode begins by showing the impact of Masayuki's advice from the previous episode. The dungeon is no longer being treated like a pure punishment maze. It is being redesigned so people actually want to enter it. The huge reward money creates attention, the rest areas make the experience more manageable, and the publicity begins drawing stronger adventurers toward Tempest. This is important because Rimuru is using entertainment as diplomacy. People may come for money, fame, or challenge, but once they enter Tempest's system, they are also exposed to the city's culture, economy, and monster-human cooperation. That is the bigger move. Rimuru is not only fixing the dungeon, he is turning it into a gateway that changes how outsiders see Tempest. One of the best ideas in the episode is the rest area. In a normal fantasy story, a dungeon rest area might sound silly, but in Slime, it makes perfect sense. If Rimuru wants people to keep challenging the dungeon, they need food, recovery, safety, and reasons to stay longer. So the rest area becomes a fantasy version of a theme park hub, hotel lobby, guild checkpoint, and shopping district all at once. This also creates business inside the dungeon itself. Adventurers are no longer simply risking their lives and leaving. They are spending time, spending money, meeting people, and becoming part of Tempest's growing economy. This is why Rimuru's strength as a leader is unique. He does not only defeat enemies, he designs systems that make people voluntarily participate in his world. The episode also gives us a broader look at how complex the labyrinth has become. It is no longer just a hallway full of traps. It has floors, bosses, teleportation-style movement, hidden mechanics, testing zones, and powerful guardians. Ramirez's influence makes the dungeon feel playful and chaotic, while Veldora's presence gives it a terrifying ceiling of power. This combination creates a perfect contrast. From the outside, the dungeon looks like entertainment, but inside, it is still extremely dangerous. The audience can feel that Tempest is creating something the world has never really seen before, a controlled death trap that also functions as an attraction, economy, military training field, and demonstration of national power. Before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Abhi grow naturally. Ramirez and Veldora bring a lot of the episode's energy. Ramirez is excited, loud, and full of ideas, while Veldora treats the whole situation like a game he wants to enjoy. Their scenes are funny, but they also matter because they explain why the dungeon can become so absurdly powerful. Ramirez gives the labyrinth its structure and weird creativity. Veldora gives it the aura of an unbeatable final boss. When these two are involved, the dungeon becomes more than a building project. It becomes a living toy box for overpowered beatings. Rimuru has to guide that chaos into something useful, which is one of the episode's main comedic strengths. He is surrounded by allies who are brilliant and dangerous, but not always practical. The middle section of episode 2 makes the dungeon feel like an RPG being actively patched. The team discusses floor balance, enemy placement, difficulty, rewards, rest points, and how to keep challengers motivated instead of frustrated. This is the kind of storytelling that makes Slime different from many action anime. The episode is not asking, can Rimuru defeat the enemy? It is asking, can Rimuru build an experience that people want to repeat? That sounds funny, but it is actually smart world building. Adventurers become customers, customers become visitors, visitors become witnesses, and witnesses spread Tempest's reputation. Every dungeon improvement is also a move in Rimuru's larger plan to make monsters and humans interact. Hinata's action moment gives the episode the punch it needs. After a lot of meetings and management talk, seeing Hinata cut through enemies reminds viewers that the dungeon is not just theory. It is a real combat space where elite fighters can show their skill. Her swordplay also carries extra meaning, because Hinata was once one of Rimuru most dangerous enemies. Now she is testing, challenging, and cooperating inside Tempest's system. That visual contrast is powerful. It shows how far the relationship has changed after the previous season. The action may not be the biggest fight of the series, but it gives episode 2 an exciting rhythm and rewards viewers who wanted something more dynamic after the setup-heavy premiere. The Adulman floor is one of the coolest parts of the episode, because it adds a darker flavor to the dungeon. The labyrinth is not only cute fantasy business planning, it also contains genuinely intimidating spaces and powerful guardians. Adalman's presence gives the dungeon a religious, undead, almost gothic atmosphere that contrasts with the light-hearted comedy of Ramaris and Veldora. This helps the dungeon feel layered. Different floors can have completely different moods, and that variety makes the labyrinth more interesting as a long-term setting. For a review video, this is a great point to highlight. Episode 2 succeeds when it visually sells the dungeon as a place with personality, not just a generic cave. The political meaning of the dungeon continues to grow throughout the episode. Rimuru wants humans and monsters to coexist, but he understands that speeches are not enough. People need shared spaces. The dungeon becomes one of those spaces. Adventurers enter for personal reasons, but once inside, they are relying on monster-made systems, monster-managed facilities, and Tempest's hospitality. They slowly experience that monsters can organize, entertain, protect, and trade just as well as any human nation. This is the heart of Rimuru's strategy. He does not force acceptance directly. He builds something so useful and exciting that people start changing their assumptions naturally. That makes the dungeon a soft power weapon. But episode 2 is not only about fun. The more successful Tempest becomes, the more dangerous it looks to the old powers. This is where the shadow of the Razo family becomes important. They represent the forces that see Rimuru's dream as a threat. For Rimuru, coexistence means progress. For his enemies, coexistence means losing control over humanity. That ideological clash is what gives the season its tension. Episode 2 does not need to reveal the full conflict yet. It only needs to remind us that every public success of Tempest creates fear somewhere else. The dungeon's popularity is not just good news. It is also a signal flare telling Rimuru's enemies that Tempest is growing faster than they expect. As a recap, Episode 2 covers the dungeon improvements inspired by Masayuki's ideas, the opening of more useful rest areas, the influence of prize money and publicity, the practical work of making the labyrinth more enjoyable, the comedy between Ramaris and Veldora, Hinata's impressive action inside the dungeon, and the sense that stronger adventurers and hidden enemies are now paying attention. As a review, the episode is stronger if you enjoy Slime's nation-building side. It is not a pure battle episode, but it does include enough action to keep the pace moving. The best parts are the dungeon atmosphere, the RPG-like improvement logic, Hinata's combat scene, and the way the episode turns entertainment into politics. The episode's weakness is the same thing some viewers love about Slime. It spends a lot of time explaining systems. If someone wants non-stop fighting, episode 2 may feel slow or overly business-focused. But if someone enjoys Rimuru as a ruler, planner, and world builder, this episode is very satisfying. It shows that Tempest is not becoming powerful only because Rimuru is overpowered. Tempest is becoming powerful because it is attractive. People want to visit, challenge it, trade with it, and talk about it. That kind of influence is harder to fight than brute strength. The dungeon becomes a symbol of Rimuru's leadership style. Practical, playful, profitable, and quietly revolutionary. The ending feeling of episode 2 is that the dungeon has evolved into something much bigger than an attraction. It is now one of Tempest's strongest tools for shaping the world. Rimuru has turned a dangerous maze into a diplomatic stage, a business model, a training ground, and a public relations machine. That is why the episode matters. It may look like a fun dungeon management chapter, but it is really about Tempest becoming impossible to ignore. The more people enter the labyrinth, the more Rimuru's vision spreads, and the more his vision spreads, the more the old powers will feel cornered. So episode 2 ends with a clear message. The dungeon is open, Tempest is growing, and the real political battle is getting. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Amazing Up High. Subscribing makes sure you do not miss the next video, and it gives me motivation to keep improving the quality of every upload. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.